Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Stefan, and in this video I want to give you 5 very good, simple exercises for beginners to master legato and legato phrasing. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Also, if you're looking for online piano lessons, links are going to be in the description below. This is going to be a new series where in every video I'm going to give you 5 exercises which are progressively harder that should help you master a certain technical difficulty or an aspect of technique when it comes to piano playing, similar to what Technique Tuesdays used to be like, but a little bit more comprehensive. Now, I want to stress that these are videos for beginners or early intermediate. I'm not going to get into very difficult pieces because they are very hard to cover in a short video because they are so complex. So in this specific video, I want to talk about or show you exercises about legato and legato phrasing. It's one of the most crucial technical things that you have to master in order to be a good pianist and to sound beautiful. Because piano and any kind of music is going to sound nice when it's connected, when it's smooth, when it's expressive. In order to do that, you have to know 2 things. One is legato, which is basically the Italian word for smooth playing or connected playing. And what that means is that when you play the keys on the piano, you don't have any gap in between those notes. So the notes blend into each other without the pedal, the use of the pedal. So you have to hold down one note until you press down the next note. And for a fraction of a second, the 2 notes sound together at the same time. So this sounds very complicated, but it's not. If I just show you a couple of notes here. So if I play 3 notes, there's a little gap between them. They sound a little bit choppy. So what we can do is press down the first note, then the next note, I'm going to hold down the first note until I press down the next, and the same. So blending the notes into each other. I'm going to show the exercises very soon, but first I want to talk about the 2 concepts. So that's basically legato playing, and you need that in order to express melodies and make them sound very artistic. The second thing you need to learn about, which is very closely connected to legato, is phrasing musical ideas. Now, it's very good to play legato, but you can't play 3 pages completely legato without ever lifting up your hand. It's the same thing as if you read a page from a book and you didn't take a breath anywhere, you wouldn't have a full stop anywhere. It would be very difficult to follow and it wouldn't make so much sense because it's not broken down into sentences. And that phrasing means breaking music down into shorter chunks or sentences. And basically, the way we create sentences is that we break that legato movement and we lift up our hand and start a new phrase, connect the notes, lift up the hand, connect the notes, lift up the hand. And that's phrasing. And phrasing can be very difficult, especially when the phrasing happens at different times between the 2 hands. So one hand is lifting up sooner than the other. And the exercises I'm going to show you in a second are going to address this difficulty as well. Without further ado, let's dive into these exercises and let's see how we can master legato playing and phrasing. Let's start with the most basic exercise, trying to play a 5-note legato scale. So we're going to put the right hand on the C and we're going to play C, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So just a 5-finger exercise. Now first, let's play it by separating each of these notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now, when we played it separated, let's try to blend those fingers. So putting down the 1 on the C, and I'm only going to strike the second key while the first one is still down. And then I quickly release. So there's a fraction of a second when both notes sound, but if I lift it up slightly sooner than the next note, I get a little gap. So let's blend those fingers. And that's our legato going up and coming down, one long legato connecting all of those notes going down and coming up. Now remember, when we play legato or any kind of scales, even if it's not legato, but especially for legato, we're going to use something called wrist circles. So we're not going to keep the hand very static, but we drop, and as we move out, the hand follows and comes back and lifts. So everything is a rounded motion, and that's going to feel more comfortable, but also it's going to sound nicer and it doesn't lead to tension. Let's do the same for the left hand, starting 5 on the C, blending, circles, and lift, drop, blend, and in order to create that beautiful legato sound, you have to make sure that the sound is uniform all the way through, so none of the notes stick out like this. So all of them have to be the same key attack or the same kind of volume in order to get that smoothness in the playing. So in this first exercise, we learned about the basic concept of legato, how to play 5 basic notes after each other in a smooth legato manner. The second exercise is going to combine the 2 hands playing legato at the same time and phrasing. A very basic form of phrasing. So this one is called Chant of the Monks, and it's from Piano Adventures, the adult Piano Adventures, and the melody goes like this, hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, lift. So what you noticed is that the melody is very basic. It's again a couple of 5-note scales going up and down. The important part was that first of all I was playing the legato in both hands with the same wrist circles and leading the melody, so they were playing at the same time with the same legato. But what you noticed is that I lifted up my hand to create shorter chunks of melodies. Now let me play it again without any lifts anywhere. It sounds very similar, but something is missing. The breaths are missing. So let's do it slowly on the count. Start with a drop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, lift. Now, when we do these lifts to create phrases, to separate the music into shorter phrases, the lift has to be a nice rounded motion, but not too high and not too slow, because then you'll fall out of rhythm. So what can happen is, and we put in like 3-4 beats of rest, and we can't do that. So the lifts have to be timed, and what we do is, if we have, for example, a 2-beat note, like a half note or minim at the end of the first phrase, we are going to lift up on the 4th beat. So we're not going to hold it for the whole 2 beats. We lift up after the first beat of the note, so the 3rd beat in the bar or measure. And that way we have enough time to lift up and get back onto the first note of the next phrase in time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the 4th beat, I lifted up and I had enough time to come back to my 2nd phrase. And the key thing here again is to make sure you catch your notes when you do your lifts. So not going too high up, but doing it in a round motion, not like that. And sometimes I see quite often with new students that when they do a lift, they barely lift the hand, just like half an inch. And that's not really a lift. A lift has to feel like you're really taking a breath and you're starting a new phrase. So this is exercise number 2, and work on it a lot and try to really work on that motion of the hand horizontally but also vertically with the lifts to make sure it feels natural when you fall back onto the first beat. You don't have to rush those lifts, but you do them. Every time you get to the end of a slur, a legato line, you have to lift. And I forgot to say this with exercise 1. So basically the slur, the long curved line that connects all of these notes, is what tells us to play legato. If there is no slur, we don't play legato. If there is a slur, we play legato. And when the slur finishes, we lift up our hands and start the new slur in a new phrase. Exercise number 3, I'm going to show you 2 pieces here. So this one is going to be shorter phrases. So the same thing what we did before, the 2 hands are still playing the same note in both hands, but the phrases are going to be much shorter, which means you have to lift much quicker. So it's a more advanced version of exercise 2. And the first one I want to show you is number 11 from Kabalevsky's Opus 39. And by the way, I have tutorials for some of these Kabalevsky exercises on my channel if you want to watch the whole 20-minute thing. Now I'm just going to talk very briefly about it. So let me show you the first couple of lines of the piece. So again, a very simple melody, not particularly pretty, but it has a lot of very short phrases. And when we have shorter phrases, we can't do such big lifts. We have to do them slightly more subtle, but we still have to do all of them. And it's very hard when you have a lot of lifts, especially when they come at kind of awkward places like halfway through a beat or halfway through a bar. So the 2 hands play the same notes, but they are 2 octaves apart. Right hand starts number 3 on the D, and it's in D major 2 sharp. So the first phrase goes like this: 2 and 1 and 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 so on. So when we have the shorter lifts, we can lift on the and. So 1 and 2 and lift. So we take off a quaver or an eighth note from those crotchets. And this is going to change depending on how fast the music is and how short the note values are. But you always have to kind of chip off a little bit or shave off a little bit from that last note in order to give yourself enough time to do the lift to get the phrasing right. And again, the left hand does the same, starting on the D number 3. And the other thing about phrasing is when you have a longer phrase, you always want to round off the end of that phrase. And rounding off basically means like slightly quieting down and finishing off that sentence. And this is something you have to experiment with a lot before you feel it. But if I play this last phrase from the A without any rounding off, it sounds like this. But if I round it off, listen. So we use dynamics to round things off, and just like when you speak, if you reach the end of a sentence, you change the tone, you change the melody. to make sure that we actually feel that it's the end of a sentence. In music, that's going to be the end of a phrase and you have to round it off, especially if it's a longer phrase. With very short phrases, it's quite hard to round off if you have 2 or 3 notes because there's not much you can do dynamics-wise in such a short amount of space. So once again, the 2 hands working together, lift, lift. Round off. And so on. So a great exercise for short phrases, rounding off and coordinating identical melodies in the 2 hands. Another exercise, still for this number 4 category, because this one deserves a bit more attention. So it's another Kabalevsky exercise, number 4. It's a lot shorter, but the phrases are very short. All of them are 2 notes long, so 2 quavers, 2 eighth notes, and it sounds like this. So very, very short phrases, and you have to lift every single time because otherwise it sounds like this. Which, you know, is still a piece, but it's not what the composer wanted. And this specific pattern, the 2-note phrases, are very often there in sonatas and bigger piano works. The good thing is that the slurs happen at the 2 ends, so outer 2 fingers and first 2 fingers. Again, the key is G major, 1 sharp, and the right hand starts 1 on the E, and it's always a skip. Lift. So we can do a drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift. So kind of almost balancing the hand on the 2 edges and making sure it's a very fluid, wavy motion, not like this, which I've seen before. So, and again, we're shaving off a little bit from that final quaver or eighth note in the groups of 2s to make sure we have enough time to lift up the hand and readjust the position for the higher notes. Left hand does the same thing. And so on. And hands together, making sure they work perfectly in sync. And so on. So again, a very good exercise for short phrases. We can't even call these phrases. Let's call them short legato groups of notes. Number 5 is coming to more difficult territory, which is basically phrasing differently in the 2 hands. So far, in every exercise, we had to lift at the same time. But many times, one hand is going to have to lift while the other hand is holding down. And that's very difficult because the hands want to follow each other. If your right hand is lifting, the left hand wants to come up with it. And you have to learn to control the 2 hands independently, so hand independence. Now here's another exercise from Kabalevsky's book, number 16, which I think is a sad song or triste relato. I've got different languages here. And let me show you the first phrase of it. Again, I have a tutorial for the entire piece. And that was the first phrase. So what you noticed is that the left hand was connected all the way through because we have a very long slur, but the right hand was lifting up after every 2 bars or measures because the slur only lasts for 2 notes, 2 dotted minims or dotted half notes. So what we do here is, first of all, we practice hands separately. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, lift. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, lift. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, lift. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Left hand all the way connected. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, lift. Now, putting it together, you have to really pay attention to keep that left hand down. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And when the left hand plays that C, the right hand comes up and so very tricky thing to do. If you have the feel for it, it's going to feel easier, but many people really struggle with this the first time they try it. If you do it a lot, it's going to become second nature, but this is where it gets more complicated, where the phrasing happens at different places in the two hands. And you know, later on when staccatos come in, that's going to make it even harder. But this video lesson is all about legato, so we don't combine different articulations. That's going to be for another video. So here's another exercise for category 5. This one is from Bartók's Microcosmos Book 1, and it's number 31. A very odd melody, but most of them are in that book. Again, you can see that the slurs happen at completely opposite places in the two hands. And again, I'm going to show you the first phrase because the second one is very similar, and we'll talk a little bit about that phrasing. So that was Bartók's very odd melody. Now it's almost like a canon, isn't it? Because the one hand is copying the other. This one is very common in Bach imitation. Right hand starts on the D. And when the right hand gets to the F, the left hand joins in with the same melody. And when you get to the E, the right hand comes up, left hand stays down, and left hand comes up, right hand comes up, left hand stays connected. Connect. So very, very tricky, and again, a really good exercise for the brain to try to control the two hands separately, working together with different slurs. The last exercise in this group and in this video is going to be from Czerny, our best friend Czerny, and this one is from Opus 599, number 30. And this one sounds more like an actual piece, so it's the ultimate challenge if you're a beginner. If you're an intermediate student, it's not going to feel so much of a challenge, but the phrasing in it is quite tricky. So I'm going to show you the first phrase. It goes like this. So the left hand is lifting up every single bar, and the right hand has these interesting slurs which connect from those semiquavers or 16th notes at the top. So 1, 2, tira pam pam pam, lift. Connect. Lift. 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 Connect. The slurs start on the third beat of the bar or measure, which makes it very tricky because the left hand is still holding and then the left hand is lifting while the right hand is holding. So, lift. Now right hand holds but left hand lifts. Right hand lifts. Lift the left hand, hold down the right. Lift. the left. Feel free to learn the whole piece. It has a lot of other technical challenges like staccatos and repeated notes, but the first section is what was really relevant for this lesson or this video. Well, I hope this video helped clear up a little bit about legato and phrasing and what's the relationship between them and how we do them in different scenarios, and hopefully it should help you build up your level of difficulty if you start these exercises from the start and ultimately get to number 5 and master those as well. If you have any questions about legato or phrasing, leave them in the comments. And also, if you have any ideas for topics for this video series, leave them in the comments. What is that technical aspect that you really struggle with in your piano playing? What should I explain in more detail? Thank you very much for watching, and as always, subscribe for more.